you interested in quilting but don't know where to start? No need to feel intimidated. I'll have you sewing your first blocks in no time with this easy guide. Hi, it's Hannah with Fabric Café. Have you ever thought about making a quilt? If you are an experienced sewer with a pile of fabric scraps or someone who has never picked up a needle before, quilting is a fun and rewarding experience. But it can seem intimidating for new or first-time quilters. In this video, I will tell you everything you need to know to get started, from what a quilt is, to the tools you need, and also a step-by-step process on your first project. Let's get started. So what is a quilt? A quilt is actually made up of 3 different layers, which we lovingly call a quilt sandwich. So your first part is your quilt top, which is all of the beautiful blocks you built and put together to make your beautiful design. We have our batting layer, and this is what gives the quilt that nice fluffy warm feeling. We use Warm and Natural, which is a 100% cotton batting. The next layer is our backing. Now we have some great handouts on how to prep a backing for our quilts at fabriccafe.com under the free goodies tab. Once you have all of these layers done, you're going to quilt it. And that's what's going to hold your quilt top, batting, and backing all together, making that sandwich one thing. This is an example of some quilting. So you can see all of these stitches right here, locking all of those layers together. And then you're gonna add on your binding. Binding is the last step that covers up the raw edges of your quilt. We like to do a single fold binding, but there are lots of ways you can bind a quilt. Let's go over some basic terms you'll need to know to get started. First, we have our selvage, and what that is the finished edge of a woven fabric that prevents it from raveling or fraying. So you can see it right here. It's usually a different color, but sometimes it does just blend in, but it'll have fabric distinction. You can feel it. With the fabric, or WOF, this is the width from one selvage to your other selvage. So it's across the fabric. Now, we like to keep it folded when we cut because that makes it so much more manageable. Right sides together. Now, there is a right side and a wrong side to fabric. And what that means, the right side is the pretty side. The wrong side is the back side, which you can see the fabric is not as printed, you have a little bit more woven texture. You want this part to be what is shown on your quilt. Take your 2 pieces that you're sewing together, and you're going to put them right sides together, making sure both the pretty sides are facing in, the wrong side facing out, wrong side facing out. And that means when you open it up, it's gonna have both pretty sides facing out so you can see it. Seam allowance. Seam allowance is the space between the edge of the fabric and the stitch line. So you can see that right here, we have a bit of a space right there. We use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you sew that, you're going to press it. Now, many people like to press it to one side or the other, but we recommend pressing your seams open like this. So you push those 2 seam allowances off to the sides, and that makes it nice and flat and evenly distributes the weight of your fabric. Strip assembly. Now, a strip assembly is 2 or more with the fabric strips sewn together on the long edges. Sometimes you will encounter them not matching up perfectly on one side. You can see it's nice and lined up over here. That's fine, don't worry about it. That's just some fabrics might be a tiny bit wider than others or have a bigger selvage. Don't worry about it, it's still gonna work out just fine. Units. These are pieces you make that will go together to assemble your quilt blocks. It might be something that you cut off from your strip assembly, or it might be other pieces that you make and sew together. For example, these are 2 half-square triangles that we sew together to make a unit. These will be sewn to other units to make your full block. When you're making your quilt, you're going to be assembling blocks. There are so many different types of blocks you can make. Let's just look at a few of the basic ones you'll encounter. Square, 4-patch, 9-patch, half-square triangles, which are also often used as units, a pinwheel, and a snowball, made using the stitch and flip method. There are even more classic blocks out there, but these are the building blocks to start making more advanced projects. If you would like to get more in-depth instruction on these blocks, be sure to check out the rest of our videos. We have lots of tutorials. Now let's look at what supplies you're gonna need. There are lots of different types and brands for these supplies, and some projects even call for specific tools. But we're gonna go over the basics you'll need for quilting and what we use. First off, we need our fabric. Now, we recommend fabric that is 100% cotton, that is 44 to 45 inches wide. Now that means 44 inches from selvage to selvage. If you're looking online for fabric, it should tell you that measurement in the description. If you're looking at a shop, check the end of the bolt. Our patterns make it really easy. You only need 3 yards for any of our 3-yard patterns. First, you need your focus fabric, which is our big print or whatever we're wanting to show off the most. We have our fabric number 2, which is the lightest color. Then we have our fabric number 3, which is our darkest color in our kit. You can find fabric at your local quilt or fabric shop because it's really great to see it in person. You can also find fabric online. We have lots of great fabric by the yard as well as pre-matched 3-yard kit bundles on our website at fabriccafé.com. Or if you're looking for something super specific for a project, Etsy can be a good option too. Rotary cutter. We use an ergonomic Olfa brand rotary cutter. This allows you to get a more accurate cut than scissors, and it's faster. Make sure to change your blades out often. I change mine out about every 1 to 2 projects, because that makes it a lot easier to cut. And a great way to use those old blades that you're done with is to put them in something like a blade saver. Now this has an old blade in here, and you can use it to cut threads, and it's super great for that. Self-healing cutting mat. The bigger the better on cutting mats. But if you are limited on space, you can make do with one that is around 17 inches by 23 inches. Rulers. First off, we have a long ruler. Now this one is 8.5 inches wide by 24.5 inches long. When you're just starting off, you can make do just with this ruler. But there are some other rulers that make your life a little bit easier. There are square rulers that come in all sorts of sizes. And I think these are the most useful ones if you want to just grab a couple of them to try them out. This is 6.5 by 6.5, and this one is 12.5 by 12.5. Thread. We like 100% polyester thread. Now some good brands are Mettler and Coats & Clark, but you can usually find a 100% polyester thread at any craft store. When just starting out, a few good colors to have on hand are white, black, and beige or gray. Needles. There are so many different types of needles out there, but here's what we have found works best for us. For your sewing machine, we use a size 70 universal needle. Now you can look up your sewing machine and see what needle it recommends, but 70 is usually a good bet. For hand sewing, this is very personal for what you are working on. For example, for binding, I like to use binding needles because the needle is longer and flexible. But for other projects, I might need something a little bit different. I recommend getting a needle variety pack that has different sizes and see what you like best. Clips and pins. Now we like to use Clover flathead pins. These are really long and sharp and they have a nice flat head so it doesn't get in the way when you're sewing. Clips are an optional thing, but if you're going to be doing any hand sewing, these are very helpful to keep everything in place. Sewing machine. You just need a basic machine that goes forwards and backwards. You don't need anything super fancy. But when you're starting out, sometimes it can be expensive to find a good machine. So here's some ideas. See if you have any family members who have a machine that they aren't using anymore. Check online. Sometimes you can find some really good deals. An iron. Now I like a heavy iron with a nice point on it. Rowentas are really nice and heavy duty. But you can also use any regular old iron. This is a Black & Decker that you can just pick up at most stores. A marking pen or pencil. You will need to mark your fabric for certain blocks. Now, there are specific fabric marking pens that will wash out like this one, but I just use a pencil because I can get it nice and sharp and it'll still wash out. Seam ripper. Occasionally, you are going to have to rip out seams and re-sew something, so a seam ripper is a must. These do get dull over time as well, so you want to replace these every year or so. Best press or starch. Starch gives your fabric a temporary stiffness, which makes it easier to cut and sew. It can also help prevent the edges of your fabric from fraying. We like to use Mary Ellen's Best Press, which is a starch alternative. In our experience, using starch gums up your iron, but Best Press doesn't do that. This helps get your seams really nice and flat and makes assembling your quilt easier. Some other useful items are Ziploc baggies, index cards or scrap paper, and a pen or a Sharpie. Whenever I'm cutting my fabric, I like to make labels for what I'm cutting and put the label with its fabric pieces in a Ziploc bag. This is optional, but it's really helpful to keep your pieces organized and help you from getting confused. Now that we have our supplies, let's go step by step on the process of how you make your quilts. First, you pick your pattern. I recommend something simple like our So Quick pattern. This has a really nice big block that's just a simple square. And then our secondary block is a 4-patch like we saw earlier. Next, you're gonna pick your fabric following the method we looked at earlier. And here are some ideas for you. Remember, any 3 yards works with any of our 3-yard patterns. So you can pick whatever vibe you want, whether you want bright and colorful, or you want maybe some more earthy tones. It's gonna work, just follow that focus, light, and dark in any one of these patterns. Once you have your fabric, it's time to start cutting it out. In all of our patterns, the cutting instructions are set aside in a colored box. These instructions are divided into fabrics 1, 2, and 3. I recommend just going down the list and cutting out everything from each section one at a time. Press your fabric before you start cutting too. This will help your pieces be straighter. After you've cut your fabric, you're gonna start building your blocks. It's not a bad idea to read through the pattern once before you start. Take the pattern instructions one step at a time and make all of your blocks. Once you've completed your blocks, I recommend laying out all of your blocks on a bed, table, or ground to make sure they are going the right way before you start sewing your rows together. When you're sewing your blocks into rows, just go row by row, sewing the blocks together from left to right. I think it's helpful to use a sticky note underneath the row I'm working on. It helps me stay focused and not get distracted by the other rows. After your blocks are sewn into your rows, you're ready to start putting those together to make your quilt top. When your quilt top is finished, backing is sewn, and batting gathered, it's time for quilting. And there are a lot of different ways that you can quilt your finished top. You could do it on the machine, you can send it to a long arm, you could hand quilt it, you could tie it. Once you're done quilting with whatever method you choose, it's time to bind it. Now, we use a single fold binding like I mentioned, but there are a lot of other ways you can finish your quilt if that's not your cup of tea. If you're a beginner quilter and an entire quilt seems too daunting, then start with a small project like a baby quilt, table runner, or even just a placemat. We have a great book called Make It Home with 3-Yard Quilts that comes with instructions for small projects just like this. Don't be afraid to use your seam ripper either. There is no shame in having to seam rip something. Take your time and have patience. Quilting is best enjoyed when not in a hurry. And now you know everything you need to get started. Quilting has an amazing community and we are excited to have you in it. For more in-depth tutorials and tips on the things we went over today, be sure to watch the other videos on our channel and click that subscribe button to watch all of our future videos. To get more ideas on good beginner patterns, be sure to watch the video that pops up. Happy quilting!